Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Ian Pont. Ian, really appreciate your time today.
No problem.
So Ian's going to give us a fast bowling masterclass. Before we start, Ian, can you just talk us through your background, playing career, Essex mainly?
Yeah, mainly Essex. I started with Notts, although we'll skirt over that a little. I played at school and was a very, very good batter. I played England under-19s as an opening batter. I didn't really bowl that much. I bowled these little sort of swingy things. Not sign me as a batsman, and I think the 2 years I had there, they realised quite quickly I wasn't really a first-class batsman. And when I left, they said, why don't you take up fast bowling? You're a big unit. And I was probably bowling in those days 75 to 77 miles an hour. They encouraged me to try and bowl quicker, and I had 2 years out of the game. I went to Stowe School. I worked on the grounds there, got myself a lot fitter and trimmer, swam every day. Went into the gym, did a little bit of weights, and then I discovered that if I did certain things with my own bowling action, the ball came out faster. And I followed those principles, and in 1985, Essex offered me a one-year contract, and I basically went from there and had 5 years at Essex bowling quickly, but batting way down the order. So it worked out all right for me in the end, but initially it was a batsman turning into a fast bowler.
And you had success at Essex, winning the championship?
Yeah, do you know what? I was so lucky because 85, we had a wonderful squad. I mean, we had people like Darren Gough and Alan Border and wonderful cricketers. And it was a bit like being probably on the bench at Man United. You were a great club that were winning trophies, and you could either be with a lesser club and probably play more, or you could be on the bench at a great club like Essex. And I was very lucky. We straight off the bat in 85, we won the NatWest Trophy, which I played in the final, which was the only game I played for Essex in that competition, was in the final when Neil Foster got ill. And we won the county championship, we won the Sunday League. While I was there, we won all 4 competitions in that 5-year period. Not because of me, I hasten to add, but it was a wonderful time for me. In 1988, I retired. I was 27, I wasn't really in the team. We played a lot of cricket at that stage, and I fell out of love a little bit with cricket because I just played so much. And I went away from the game for a few years and then came back as a coach probably 5 or 6 years later.
And you talk about your coaching. You've coached many county sides. I want to pick up on your time at Worcester,
yeah,
and obviously Essex as well.
Yeah.
Mention those 2 counties because certain Shoaib, Akhtar and Dale Steyn,
yeah, well, again,
they've credited you.
Fortune, I guess, in a way. I was working, at that stage, I was living in the Cotswolds. Myself and my wife, we moved over to the Cotswolds. And Worcestershire were looking for a bowling coach to work with the academy. So I had a kind of a part-time role. And the overseas player for Worcestershire at that stage was Shoaib Akhtar. And I remember doing a session on a Sunday, and I was just packing my stuff up. And Shoaib came across with his jeans and sort of Bollywood shirt on, leaning on the fence, and he said, "You're the pace guy, aren't you?" And I thought, wow, okay, Shoaib's asking if I'm the pace guy. This was 2 years after he'd bowled this fastest ball ever recorded. And I said, yeah. And he said, do you think I could bowl quicker? And I said, well, there's 2 ways to find out. One is to guess. The other one is to put some shorts on and let's have a session. And we had a bowling session together, and it was an enlightening experience for me to work with a guy who was the world's fastest bowler, but has a head full of knowledge himself. I mean, he understood exactly what he was doing and where the speed came from. Probably one of the most intelligent fast bowlers I've ever worked with, and I think to this day would be a great fast bowling coach himself. And we had 2 sessions together, and it was very clear early on that he was accessing his speed from a certain part of his body, which was arm pull or shoulder hip separation. We'll talk about that a little bit. And he's a slingy type bowler. And we didn't tease any more speed out of him, but he was just curious to find out whether he could get quicker. And he kept in contact with me, and the next time I saw him was in the 2011 World Cup when I was national bowling coach with Bangladesh, and he was with the Pakistan side, and we hooked up in Dhaka and had a chat then. And I'm very humbled to find out that he'd mentioned me in his book, Controversially Yours, as one of only 2 coaches that he trusted, so that was quite a nice thing. And then I went to Essex's bowling coach in the mid-2000s, and we signed a young, I think 19 or 20-year-old he was then, called Dale Steyn. He'd only played 3 tests. And I was very lucky to work with Dale over a 6-week period while he was at Essex. And he was going through a really bad time, actually. He was inaccurate. His speeds were good, but he couldn't really control the ball. And by the time he left us, He got his mojo back a little bit, and then he went on and worked with the great Alan Donald, and then the rest is history. I think he was ranked sort of 100 and something in the world when he came to us, and within 24 months he was ranked number 1 in the world, and he stayed there for a decade. So I was very lucky. If you think of at that time, the triumvirate of great fast bowlers would be Brett Lee, Shoaib, Akhtar and Dale Steyn. I was very lucky to work with 2 of them. Never got to work with Brett Lee, unfortunately, although he's kind of the bowling model that we aspire to.
And so you mentioned your time as national bowling coach for Bangladesh.
Yeah.
You had a stint with the Netherlands as well.
I did, yeah.
Time at the PCL as well.
The PSL, yeah.
PSL.
Yeah.
Out of all your experiences, who is the best bowler you've worked with in terms of talent?
This is going to sound strange, but the person that I engaged with the best was Darren Gough. Why I say Darren Gough, he was right towards the end of his career. He must have been 35 at the time I was at Essex. And I'd worked with pretty much everybody else. Bear in mind, I'm a technical skills coach. That's really where I sit now as a coach. And he was someone, he was kind of a legend of the game, England's leading ODI bowler in terms of wickets. Are you going to mess with Dale Steyn's bowling action? Darren Gough's bowling action? Not really. You're not really going to say to Goughy too much, are you? The saying is you can tell a Yorkshireman, but you can't tell him very much. And the thing with Goughy, he was always going to tell you if he wasn't happy. And about 5 or 6 days in, I hadn't said anything to him, but I was very interested to talk to him about his front arm position. And in the end, we had this conversation, and he changed his front arm position from across the body to an L shape at the front. And he actually bowled faster because of that. He had a better alignment due to that. And he got an extra few years out of his career, I believe. And in that year, which was the Ashes year, 2005, he played in the ODI series. And Shane Warne said it's the quickest he'd seen Goughy bowl since he was 21. And he was 34, 35. So he was probably the most intelligent one I've ever worked with, and probably the most fulfilling, because he made his bowling change like that, which is unusual.
And right now we're in the National Fast Bowling Academy.
Yes.
You're doing work with, talk us through your role there.
Yeah, well, what we decided to do, we thought that there was no real pace programme for people outside of professional cricket. You know, Loughborough has a national pace academy, not in that name, but they run pace camps, and if you're a first-class cricketer, you get to work with the coaches up there. But for the players underneath that level, there's never been anything. So we wanted to create pretty much ostensibly a people's academy. And the National Fast Bowling Academy was born last year, and we had, I think, 68 fast bowlers join us. We went around the country and trialled people. We picked the ones that we thought would be worth working with. This year we have 115 across 3 different camps. And next year we're trying to push that into 200. There is a lot of interest in this country from parents who want their sons or daughters to bowl quickly. So we set up the National Fast Bowling Academy here, at the Hearts and Essex Cricket Centre, which is a fantastic place, great big surface area. As myself and Catherine Dalton, we are the main coaches for this, and we have 2 assistant coaches, 4 full-time coaches. We do strength and conditioning, we also do fitness training, we do fielding with them, we do sprint work with them. We bring in those extra expertise. It's a great camp, it's a 6-month project, and we stay in contact with them for the year, and it's been absolutely astronomical. We're really happy with it. Fantastic.
So come on, let's get into the masterclass.
Let's get into that. So first things first, and this is worth understanding. People believe that fast bowlers are born. That is not true. We're all born with certain attributes and assets, and the secret is, how do you make the most of it? Most people watching this who are cricket coaches themselves will understand that fast bowling is that dark art. No one really knows how to teach speed. Speed is perfectly teachable, but you have to understand how the body works to do it. So I want to keep this very simple, because there are a lot of coaches out there who make this subject complicated, and it isn't complex at all. But it is biomechanics. I want to break that down. Biomechanics just means body movement. Mechanics means movement. Bio means of the body. It's just movement of the body. So I want you to think of this as learning a dance step, or learning how to play a musical instrument, or learning how to sing, or learning how to do something else. There's a structure to how it operates. So, first things first, are we all the same, or are we all different? The answer to that is we are both. We're all different in the sense that we're human beings. We all have a thumbprint that's different, but we're all the same because we have a thumbprint, and we're all the same because we're humans. And if you think of it, There's two parts to this. There's structure, which is our head, 2 arms, 2 legs. That makes us common. And there's style, which is how we do it, which makes us unique. We can't coach style, but we can coach structure. And when I was going through my own processes, I was trying to understand, when I was a player, what creates speed. So I studied thousands of bowlers, and over time I realised that the key fast bowlers were doing the same things. And those same things I boiled down into 4 principles, which I called the 4 tent pegs. Why tent pegs? Everyone said, why do you call them the tent pegs? I was trying to think of a structure of any size that you could keep in place. So my thought was, if I had 4 pegs, 1 in each corner, it would hold it together. And in other words, the action is held together by 4 things. And they are back foot impact, front foot impact, ball release, and follow through. So should we go into the crease?
Yes,
I think. So if we have a wander up here, and the principle of this really is you can take anybody and put them in these key positions. It doesn't mean they're going to bowl fast, but what it means is they're going to be the best version of themselves. So let me be clear. I'm not saying you can take an old lady off the street who's 90 years old and turn her into a great fast bowler. I'm not saying that at all. But what you could do is you could make her the best version of her. And I'm in the job of trying to create the best version of cricketers. So if we come all the way up here, sort of bring you down, we'll come up into the crease area here. I'm going to talk about the 4 tent peg positions. The first one is back foot impact. So if I'm a sideways bowler, I'm bowling this way, but my back foot is going to land pointing sideways. So that's the first thing, and this is what coaches misunderstand as sideways. Sideways is where the back foot points. So if my back foot lands this way, I'm a sideways bowler. It means my chest is going to face sideways. It means my hips and shoulders are going to face sideways because that's how I'm landing. But I'm bowling this way. Okay, the 2 principles for making this position work are, I'm going to have my hand somewhere in my vision, and I'm going to make sure that my elbow and my knee line up together like there's a piece of string between them. So tent peg 1, back foot impact position for a sideways bowler would be this. Really simple. This is the position here. And all I'm doing, I'm lifting my elbow and my knee up from my core. I'm not leaning back to do it, so I don't want to create issues here. I'm not twisting and opening this way, because this would be a mixed action. And we don't want bowlers to mix in the bowling action. So, tent peg 1 for sideways bowlers here. Elbow and knee together. Effectively eat an apple, old school stuff. Looking over the crook of my arm down the pitch. Easy position. Next one is semi-midway or semi-side on. This foot is now pointing towards a square leg umpire, which means the rest of me is also going to point towards the square leg umpire. And the same principle applies. We're going to eat an apple, we're going to pick the elbow and knee up together, and I'm going to start to bowl like this, if in this position. And as I'm looking forward, I'm looking slightly inside my arm rather than over the side of it, because I'm semi-midway. I'm not either front on or side on. I'm semi. But the position's identical. Elbow and knee lined up together, eat an apple. Third one, front on. It's front on bowler, my laces and foot are pointing straight down the pitch, so the rest of me will. I'm going to eat an apple again, and I'm going to lift my knee and elbow up together here. Now I'm looking way inside because I'm chest on. So those 3 positions, the only things that differ in the 4 tent pegs: sideways, semi-sideways or semi-midway, and front on. That's the position for tent peg 1. The rest of this is now identical. So from here, we're going to go to tent peg 2. Tent peg 2 is front foot impact. I'm going to do this from front on, then I'm going to reverse it round, and I'm going to explain why in a second. So if I'm front on, what I'm going to do on the bottom of my action, I'm going to take my hands away, is I'm going to extend my foot and land with a straight front leg. And when I do that, I'm going to create a little bend in the back here. It's called a drop step. So what I've got is I've got a drop step and a block at the front. So it's a front foot block and drop. I'm giving you the right terminology. Drop step, up on my toe drop, front foot block. Now, why I want to keep this leg straight and not bend is if I bend my front leg, I'm going to absorb my energy. I don't want to do that. I want to transfer my energy into the top of my body. And I do it by creating a blocking motion. A bit like hitting a brick wall and my top's going to get thrown forward. So I'm trying to create a base that's strong, stable. Drop, block. Again, drop, block. Whilst that's happening, the top of my body, I'm going to isolate that. now goes to grab the batsman's collar here and grab the sight screen from behind here. So put those two together. This is the position for tent peg 2. And what you'll notice is my feet are lined up as if I was on skis. Lots of coaches make the mistake of having tightrope feet, which is like this, and that's off balance. But they're still straight, so they'll think, oh, the feet are straight, but they're on a tightrope. We want them on skis because they need to be underneath each hip.
Is that a lot to do with momentum going forward?
It's to do with not crossing your feet over. If you cross your feet over, you start to step across and tip away, which is called lateral flexion. We don't want to do that. We want to keep everything aligned to target as we're built as human beings. Feet under knees under hip, feet under knees under hip. Keep it simple. So front on bowler will drop into the block. Tent peg 1, 2. Simple. If I'm a semi-bowler, I've got to turn these laces to land. That movement is called pre-turn. I'm going to turn those laces before the front foot impacts. So a semi-bowler, just base only, would do this. They turn their foot just before the front foot impacts. And a sideways bowler would be here, and they would turn more. Why that's important is we're trying to engage ankle, knee and hip rotation. We're trying to rotate our hips towards the batsman. And that twisting motion is called torque, and that creates speed. So it helps us to create a rotation of the hips into the block. If you're a sideways bowler, you can't just bend your knee. You remember Steve Finn? He changed, I think, the laws because he kept hitting the stumps with his knee. And if you look at his bowling action, he tends to bowl like that. I'm exaggerating. When actually, that would be the answer. So pre-turn, drop step, front foot block. Again, the top half of the body is the same for all three. Grab the batsman's collar, grab the sight screen from behind. As a sideways bowler, that's the position I'm looking for. And you'll notice that I'm balanced over the top of my knee, under my hip, under my shoulder. It's all aligned. What I'm not doing is this. I'm not pushing my body forward before I bowl. Because I want the bottom half of my action to do this before I use the top. Front on. I'm not using my top. I'm getting my base to be active first. This is where lots of bowlers and coaches misunderstand how the body works. It works from the floor upwards, like a rocket taking off. We need to build from the floor, then we can bring the top in second. Okay, so tent peg 1 to 2. I was a sideways bowler myself, so let's do it sideways. I'm in position, ready to go. From this position, my front arm, which is here, grabbing the batsman's collar, is now going to pull in. And if I do it towards the camera, if I just come out of context for a second, I'm going to pull the batsman in here. And I don't want to pull him in like that. I don't want to start pulling my arm in. I want to pull the batsman in towards me here. As I pull in, I'm going to start to move this hip forward as well. So this front arm and back hip work together. Whilst I'm doing that, my bowling hand is going to come over and release the ball like a high five. And that is tent peg 3 or ball release. So if I do this from the side again, so you can see, tent peg 1, into 2, into 3. There's my release. My knees are level, my front leg is straight, I pull the elbow in, I'm giving the batsman a high five. You'll notice that I'm actually quite low.
Yeah, I was about to say that because there's a lot said in the traditional MCC coaching manual as such that...
Stand up.
Stand up tall.
Bowl tall. If you want to stand up and bowl tall, you'll bowl medium pace. If you think of, let's take another sport, you think of a rugby scrum. When the rugby guys are standing up like that, the rugby scrum, they go down low, they lock and engage, they push against each other. Because that low position is a driving power position. You don't see rugby scrums pushing like this. That's not powerful. So if you want to stand up and bowl tall as a fast bowler, it's not powerful. It'll be like doing this. Confetti, gale force wind. It'll just come straight back at you. The secret of bowling fast is to get into a low-driven position with the hips back, chest forward, and extension. That gives you a big arm pull and release here. This distance is called range. We're increasing the range of motion, like an elastic band stretching. The human body is full of muscles that stretch and contract. When we stretch and contract them quickly, we're like an elastic band. But you have to do that in certain sequence. So floor first, top second. And you start, and I'll just do the base, but I'll bring the top in. You start to get this kind of ripple effect. As you hit, you feel like you're being pushed forward. You're not throwing yourself forward, you're not getting ahead of the action, you're letting your hips go, bang, and then your top gets bang, pushed in the back. So we're into tent peg 3. So we did it from sideways, into here, into release, semi here, into release, front on is just drop into the block, release. Those are the positions that we get into. So tent peg 2 and 3 are identical for all of us, except for the pre-turn, depending on which way you are. Tent peg 4, hard to do this statically, but tent peg 4 is a release. It's a follow through. What we're going to do with the bowling hand is we're going to try and come down and go past our shin with the bowling hand here. As we do that, we're going to imagine in front of us there's a lever. And as we pull the lever, it activates this knee, because we're going to drive the knee out. And when we complete the action, this bowling hand is going to the top and touch the sky. So in this position here, I'm going to come towards the camera. And then we finish in a straight line. You'll notice that I finished in my own railway track. What I didn't do is I didn't step across the stumps, or I didn't start peeling away. I did everything to target. So those are the 4 tent pegs, and what links them together is another acronym called Rusha, which stands for range, speed, sequence, separation, and alignment. Okay? Range is the distance you move the cricket ball. Speed is how fast you're moving, not the ball. How fast can you go between these lines? If you're kind of going in slow motion, the ball's not going to come out quickly. If you're going through this crease quickly like that, the ball's got a chance of coming out fast. Sequence. Are you working from the floor upwards? Or are you just bowling with your shoulders and arms? You'll see bowlers when they warm up in a game, they'll just do this. They're never using the bottom half. We don't even warm up properly in games sometimes. Club cricket's great. Club cricket's great. You see a club bowler come and go, whoa, whoa. All he's doing is swinging his arms around. It's like the rest of his body doesn't exist. And this is the problem we have as fast bowlers. We've been ingrained to believe you can't teach any of this, and it all comes from how fast your arm comes over. Not so much. It's not just that. Ultimately it is, but that's not where the speed comes from. The other thing is separation, where the hips come forward and the shoulder gets delayed. That movement between the hips being pushed forward and the shoulder being delayed, that is called shoulder-hip separation. What we don't want is we don't want them to move together like this. We want them to move away from each other to create the stretch. And one of the biggest indicators of speed is shoulder and hip separation. I always identify a fast bowler when I look at them to see whether they have shoulder-hip sep. Have they got the hips forward and the shoulder back delayed? That looks quite slingy. Hey, that's a great way to bowl. Arm pull, delayed arm, hips forward. That's a great position to be in. It's almost like a javelin throw. We're not throwing a javelin, of course, but it's that kind of shape. So we've got a brace front leg, drop step, hips here, shoulder back, that creates separation. That's one of the 3 ways of creating speed, shoulder-hip separation. Second way of creating speed, if I was just standing here and did this, and let a ball go, it would go down the other end. So how fast I rotate my shoulders, how fast I bring my arm over, is another way of creating speed. If I can bring that in whilst I'm doing this, we create 2 of the things that accelerate a cricket ball. The third way to increase speed is to increase your ground speed and block it. Now, when I explain this, we have to decelerate the base to accelerate the top. What that means is, as we come in, we hit the block and the top gets catapulted forward. We don't want to be ahead of our legs. If we get ahead of our hips or our legs, the speed isn't going to be there. The ground speed is gone. The ground speed has to come first, the block has to come first, then the top gets catapulted forward. So that big stretch at the top and contraction. It's a sequence of muscle stretch and contraction. Everybody that's watching this in the human body is made up of muscles that stretch and contract. Muscles can only pull, they can't push. The only part of the body that can push is the tongue. The rest of you, and you don't bowl with your tongue, the rest of your body just stretches and you pull the cricket ball. You need to think of pulling the cricket ball towards the batsman, and we're working in straight lines. So we have Rusha, range, speed, sequence, separation, alignment. On one side we have the 4 tent pegs, which is the structure on the other. The 4 tent pegs doesn't make you bowl fast, it's the framework which you hang your own flesh on. Does it mean if you don't have the 4 tent pegs you can't bowl fast? Not at all. Shoaib Akhtar, great example. Shoaib Akhtar bent his front leg. Doesn't make him a bad man, and he also has bowled the fastest ball ever recorded. Could he bowl quicker if he kept his leg straight? Probably, but that would have had to have happened a long time ago. Dale Steyn bends his front leg, still bowls 150 clicks. Very quick. Other bowlers keep their leg completely straight. Jofra Archer, great bottom half front leg. If you look at the bottom half of Jofra Archer's action, it's very similar to Brett Lee. Brett Lee probably had the best technical fast bowling action of all time. And he would be the closest to this model that I'm talking about. I haven't based this on Brett Lee's action. He's the one that fits this the closest. So are we trying to clone people? Not at all. I wish I could clone everybody watching this into Brett Lee or Dale Steyn. I wish I could clone you all. But the truth is we can't clone anybody. However, humans are mimickers. We copy stuff. How often do you hear of a lad from the subcontinent who's watched Sachin Tendulkar bat on video, and then he goes out and copies him? You say, oh, my inspiration was Brian Lara, or my inspiration was this person. We watch and copy. That's what we do as humans. But we're process-based learners. We have to learn by doing things in sequence. But you have to know from the start what that sequence is and how it applies. So, in general terms, I hope I haven't complicated it, but in general terms, we've got those 4 key positions that we're looking for in the action, and how we link them together is your own way of doing it. If you look at someone like Jasprit Bumrah, who has quite an unusual looking bowling action for India, or Kagiso Rabada, or anyone like that who appears very different, if you look at their 4 tent pegs, they're pretty much there. They do them in their style. That's why I said at the beginning, we have structure, which is this, and we have style, which is what it looks like when they do it. The style of Rabada is very different to Dale Steyn, very different to Mark Wood, very different to Jofra Archer, very different to Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad. We took a silhouette of Jimmy Anderson bowling, you go, oh, that's Jimmy Anderson. But he has the 4 tent pegs. Some of them are slightly, not his one in particular, but some bowlers have slightly out of sequence, but they are there. And how you'd improve that is to improve their sequencing, because it's one of the S's of Rusha. Rusha, 4 tent pegs together, you've got the best version of a bowler. And that's what we're doing here at the National Fast Bowling Academy. We're taking these young kids, giving them great information at the age of 12, 13, 15, 16, blowing their heads off for the first time because they're being told to stand up and bowl tall, and all that advice, which doesn't work. But that's what people are coaching. And the challenge we have is, let's look at how we do it. What amazed me, this is a final comment on this whole thing, what amazed me was that if you take 100 metres, Jesse Owens, I think in 1936, he won the Berlin Games. His speed was, I think, 10.36 for the 100. If he ran today against Usain Bolt, he wouldn't even qualify for the final with that speed. In fact, I don't think he would be in the women's final with that speed. That's how big the difference is. In 1930-something Bodyline series, Harold Larwood was reportedly bowling at 95 miles an hour. Just think about that for a second. That's 90 years ago. So here we are, 90 years on from someone bowling 90 miles an hour. We still get excited when somebody bowls 90 miles an hour. This is the only sport, and let me be more specific, fast bowling is the only discipline where we haven't improved in speed. Now, that can't be right, because this is human movement. Every other thing, every other sport that has a ballistic rotational movement, ballistic means speed, rotational is this, every other sport that has that has improved dramatically, except fast bowling. So you'd have to question it. So that's where we are, that's what we're doing. The proof of the pudding, we have a 13-year-old lad here, just 13, bowling 73 miles an hour. We have a 13-year-old girl bowling 65. That's fast for that age. And there'll be more. You know, we'll produce them. We'll find them. I'd like to work with all the county boards, all the national boards, and help on this side. You know, what we're doing, I think, has great interest. Whether people want to do it or not, I don't know. But that's what we're doing here, and so far, so good.
Ian, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.